Hi, everyone, and welcome to my Zed Talk. I am Zora, and I'm so glad to have you. Today, in episode 2, we're doing some inner reflection. This one really hit me randomly. I was walking in the hallway at my house, just doing nothing really. And I thought about this one, and I said this was one that that I thought was really good to talk about. You might hear some changes. I don't know. I just bought this microphone off Amazon, and I'm really feeling it. Like, I really feel official right now. Um, so yeah, I know you can't see me, but I'm smiling so hard right now. So in this episode, I said inner reflection, and I wanted to talk about closure, but no, not the wig, like not talking about wigs, but talking about closure from relationships. Um, and I came upon this. I realized that I'm at a point in my life where I'm outgrowing a lot of places, a lot of things, a lot of people, and that's not to say it's a bad thing. There was a TikTok that I saw, and it was like at a point in my life where I'm outgrowing people, but not in a oh I'm better than you thing, but more so in a our goals no longer align, our interests no longer align, and I think that's fine. I think that's a natural thing about life. You outgrow people because you all are in different settings, and I don't think that's bad. Like I don't harbor any ill feelings towards these people, but I'm not in a place where I can, there's not much to talk about anymore, and I don't feel like I benefit from those relationships. So in that, I've been thinking about how I should go about, you know, bringing it into these relationships. Do I just let things fizzle out naturally, or do I have this conversation with them and let them know that these are the reasons and it's nothing personal to you? You know what I'm saying? So that's how I came to closure, and it's what I wanted to talk about today because maybe it's something that someone else is going through. I don't know. I feel like with most of these, anytime I'm experiencing something, it's something that someone else is experiencing. But I also feel like we're in a very transitional stage right now. At like 2021, my birthday's a week from yesterday. So I just think that all of us are in a transitional phase right now as we're getting ready for adulting. Like I remember my best friend he asked me what was my plan? What are my plans for post grad? And I was like, oh wow, those are the conversations that we're having now. So yeah, really in this transitional phase and like really coming into what being an adult is or adulthood. So I wanted to talk about that. And in terms of closure, I wanted to talk about like two different types of closure, in my opinion. There's self closure, and for me, this is at when it comes to relationships. I think like at 6 months, um, that's when I've come to terms with things and I'm over it and I really could care less about the past relationship. And that will be it for me. Like after 6 months, I have figured things out by myself and I don't really need someone else or the other person involved to give me the answers that I was so desperately looking for. Um and there's obviously closure with someone else. And if you catch me 5 months or less, then I'm 9 times out of 10 I'm not over it. I still have a soft spot for that person, and I won't be as firm in my decisions, depending on how that conversation goes. So just starting with self closure, and I think this is a really important, just an important topic in general to talk about because I think when we talk about the two types of closure, think a lot of people feel like they need closure from someone else. And I was one of those people. Like I was a person who was like, yeah, I need to talk to them. I need to get answers. I need to know what they were thinking. And it's you don't have to have that. You don't. But it can still be a preference. Like personally, it is still a preference of mine to talk about things with someone else than to figure things out on my own. Um, so in terms of self closure, things that help me with self closure, I think we talk about self closure, but we don't really talk about how to get there or how to figure it out. And something that's really helped me since I was little, since I was 13, is journaling and just writing things out. And my cousin recently, she told me that to maybe if you address the letter or write a letter addressed to the person who you're seeking closure for, if you're missing them, whatever, um, and then you write it to them, you address it to them as if you're going to send it to them, but you don't send it to them. And then maybe you set that thing on fire, whatnot. I don't know. But I think the key with doing this is you have to be so real with yourself. You have to be 100% honest and transparent with yourself. And with me, how that looks like is I ask 3 questions. I ask, where did I mess up? Where do I think they messed up? And what was the lesson out of this? And I think with the first two, like where did I mess up and where do I think they messed up? That's an immediate thing. That's something I can look back on maybe 2 days after we've gone our separate ways and just look at it and be like, yeah, I could have done this. They could have done that, you know? But I think the third one, not I think, I know, the third one takes some time. It happens over time. It's not an instant thing. And for someone who is desperate, so desires instant gratification, this is such a hard thing to practice. Um, but the lesson of it, I always want to know what was the point of it? What was I supposed to get out of it? Because like, why am I going through this pain, this suffering, if there was nothing to take from it? And with just meeting more people, creating more relationships with people, I have come to terms or realized that God and I just aren't on the same page. Not on the same page. I'm sorry, Zora. God and I aren't on the same time. We aren't on the same time. We never will be. We never have been. And that was a hard pill to swallow. But in understanding this, patience is something that has become very crucial during this healing process, and it is something that, and it's in situations where I was impatient, I figured out why I should have been patient. So because of my impatience, sometimes I'll go back to that person, that relationship, and then I'll end up learning that lesson, but in a very painful way, in a way that I probably didn't have to learn if I was just patient and just waited it out, listened to what God was telling me, you know. And then in the end, I still have to go back and be patient again. So it just seems very like I'm taking. I know it's not even like I'm taking steps forward. I was just taking steps back, just L's and L's and L's, and you just go through that hurt again. So it just made me realize that it's not worth it. That's why we don't double back. No more doubling back. No more doubling back. But yeah, and I know another form of this. I know I saw a friend of mine do it, and I asked her, I was like, was it liberating? And she was like, yeah, I felt like I got like a weight off my shoulders. It's like you write everything on a plate, then you break that plate, and that's supposed to symbolize, starting fresh, starting anew. So, however the case may be, I also realized that talking about it is something that really helps. And even now, like as I'm talking about it with you all, or as I was writing out like my outline for this episode, what points I wanted to talk about, I learned a lot about myself as I was doing it. So just tying back into the writing things out, or just seeing things on paper, it really allows you to just reflect on yourself and how you've grown or how you could grow and just move forward. Um, and I know that at a point, once I've gotten closure, self closure, or once I've gotten closure from that relationship, um, if I'm at a point, depending on how the relationship went, there's a chance that that person may reach out and may seek closure. And depending on how the relationship went, I will or won't do that. And I think that's just a part of me understanding that everyone processes things differently, and they might need the answers that I have, or they might, they might not realize that self closure is a thing, and they feel like, this is the only way that they'll be able to put this aside from them if they took this shot, or, and I think that's just the nice person in me. But I also said, depending on how the relationship ended. I just had a situation like this recently where I had to do it, and I was really glad that I did do it. Initially, I turned it down. I was like, "No, you're crazy. Like you hurt me. You broke my heart." But I think after having the conversation and just seeing how the conversation ended, hugged it out, good terms. I think that was really good for me and just growing as a person. But I also think it's something that they needed. Um, and I'm sure they learned some things from it. So, on that note, let's talk about closure with someone. And let me just preface this by saying 9 times out of 10, there's at least one person who's approaching this conversation still harboring feelings for that person. Whether it be platonic, maybe they still want to be friends. Or it be romantic, maybe they want to get back together. It's always one. It's always one. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. And then there's some instances where both people are like that. Both people approach that conversation with that mindset. And that's dangerous, because when that's the case, we let our emotions blind us. And during that conversation, just based off my experience, we don't realize that the information or the conversation that's being had might be the closure that you need. Everything that's being said is probably like, hey, these are the answers that you were looking for. You got it. Leave it alone. And there are some cases where, you might be able to work beyond that. You might be able to figure it out. But I speaking from experience, I've been in that position where I was just like, so like, oh yeah, we got to work this out. We're gonna figure this out. Person this, person that, end game. And everything that I needed to know was said right then and there, but I just chose to ignore it because I was blinded. Um, and I think with that, I realized that I'm someone who doesn't. I think I said this, but I'm someone who doesn't need closure from someone else. And that's something that I've worked on over time because I was definitely someone who was like, I can't move past this unless I talk to them. But I think now I'm just someone who prefers to have it. I was like one because I don't know if y'all figured this out yet, but I like to talk. But I also want to make sure that I have the chance to say everything that I need to say. Um, and this is coming from a person who didn't say everything that they needed to say in the time where like it was a breakup or you all just said we can't do this anymore. I was someone who just roll with the punches and just keep it as I go and just muffle and not say what I had to say. So I think that was a big part of it, but then also talking out and seeing both sides of the story. Like maybe there was a lack of communication on both ends to the same extent. And, maybe once we figure out what that lack of communication was and how we can work towards making sure that doesn't happen, maybe you can rekindle it. Maybe, again, maybe. But that's not always the case. Like if that doesn't work out, if you can't rekindle it, or you might remember this person broke my heart. Now this person really hurt my feelings. But I think just those conversations, they really close the door on that relationship and you no longer think about what could have been. And like I said, it was something that I realized rather recently, but I walked away feeling very good. And sometimes being the bigger person does pay off. It might not feel like it in the moment. Maybe you want to throw a shoe at that person or you maybe want to hit them with a car. But I think, just processing things internally and then letting them see how you've grown about it. It's just a really mature and grown thing to do. Yeah. And then also like it's just very liberating. Like I can't tell you, I walked away from that conversation so light. Like I wanted to cry. I felt like I was like I didn't weigh a thing. Um and it was just very, very liberating. And I wish that upon everybody. I wish, we could all just talk about it through conversation, lay it all on the table, understand where everybody was at fault, and then just walk away knowing that you still have respect for that person, but that part or that story for you all is come to a close and it might not ever open up, or hopefully it won't ever open up. It was real good for me. But with that, as someone who doesn't need closure from someone else but prefers it, it's kind of like it kind of contradicts because I'm always scared to initiate that conversation. I've never been the person to initiate that conversation like, hey, let's talk, let's figure, or can we meet up and talk about this? One, because this is probably going to sound like, Sora, what the heck do you be doing? I'm never the person who rarely, I'm never the person who's like, hey, let's end this. So I think with that, I'm in a hurt position. And I'm like, why should I have to be the one to reach out? Yada yada. It's coming from like I was hurt, they hurt me, and I don't want to get hurt again. I mean, that's understandable. But that's the reason why I'll never reach out. And I feel like it's just a pride thing too. Like I know for me, as soon as somebody reaches out to me and lets me know that they messed up, I'm like, oh, I win. I win big time. And that's just like because I be thinking, I'm like, am I crazy? Like, I'm not crazy. Did I do this? Did I do that? And I think when you get the confirmation from someone like, hey, no, it was me, it was my fault, you're just like, okay, so I wasn't crazy. All right, screw you. And you just go on your way. At least that's how I process it. Um, it gives me like a power move. Like I'm just like, yeah, yeah, you messed up, and I just walk away like a boss. Now the instant we double back, and this is why I'm never doubling back again. Um, I feel like as soon as you double back, that power that you once felt gets stripped away, especially if you get played again. But that power that you once felt gets stripped away, and it doesn't feel you don't feel as good as you once did when they admitted that. But it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Um, it's all good. All love. All love. All love. That's why I can't say it. Like I don't have any past relationship, friendship, romantic relationship. Like I don't have no beef with nobody. And I think that's a good place to be. And I think that's a good place to end this episode, just to not take things too seriously, guys. But I do think everyone deserves closure, regardless of how the form it may come in. Maybe it's your self closure. Maybe you have that conversation with someone. I do think everyone deserves closure. And I hope that everyone gets closure in a healthy and a very peaceful way. Because we start to harbor on things too long and it starts to affect us both mentally and physically. Like you start getting wrinkles on your face, you stop drinking water, like everything just goes bad, and we don't need that. We don't need that. So that's it for me, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. Hope you all enjoyed this conversation with me. Like I said, it was one that I've been thinking about for a little while, and I think even talking about it with you all has really helped coming more to terms in terms of closure and just being okay with how things end. And yeah, so I'm gonna stop rambling, and I will see you all in episode 3. Actually, before I leave, make sure you all follow the Instagram. I'm sorry, you're probably like sore. Ugh. Make sure you all follow the Instagram, and make sure you all leave a feedback or rate the channel, rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And now, I'll see you all in episode 3. Bye.